Welcome back, everybody, to Roll Credits. Nice to see you again. So happy that you could join us. This week's episode is our top 10 paranormal horror. Sit down and enjoy.
This is my new tryout spider, just for you. No one has seen this yet. This shit is red hot. Prepare for awesome.
Wait, what?
What are you?
Explores in the further regions of experience. Of sensations rim.
Now, the first movie we're going to mention on this list is The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
We got an ID on her?
No, sir.
Well, for now, she's a Jane Doe.
Now, this is a very interesting entry into this list because it doesn't follow the same rules as the normal paranormal horror movie. As a viewer, you don't really understand what's going on until you're about halfway through the movie. It's one of those horror movies that kind of fell under the radar when it came out. Often finds itself on top 10 lists and other larger lists within the genre. We have Emile Hirsch playing the main character, who essentially helps us understand how terrifying the experience could be for someone in that position. As for the movie, it's about a father and son who own a mortuary, and they receive a body in the middle of the night and have to come in. They don't know who she is. She's considered a Jane Doe. Emile Hirsch is one of the main characters, with Brian Cox playing his father in the movie. Both phenomenal actors playing really interesting roles outside of their comfort zone. As for the story itself, what makes it interesting is that as they perform the autopsy, they start to see stranger and stranger anomalies about this Jane Doe. Things that they can't explain, things that don't make any sense. And without spoiling anything, it's important to say that something strange is definitely going on. Now, when I saw the movie, I was pleasantly surprised, loved the concept, loved the story. It had a great budget, great sound, great cinematography, fantastic special effects, and it didn't require a huge budget overall, which means they really got to do a lot of cool things with the money that they had for this film. Now, of course, I can't tell you too much about the film, but what I can tell you is that about halfway through the film, things get very, very strange. We highly recommend that you watch this movie because it's full of twists and turns, it's got a sense of the occult, and it's truly surprising to see what the answers are at the end of the movie. Now, if you haven't seen it before, we highly recommend The Autopsy of Jane Doe. It's definitely one paranormal horror movie that you will never forget. Next movie on our list is a Netflix original that I personally saw out of total random surprise. It's called The Ritual. Now, it follows a few friends that go to a cabin in the woods and honestly doesn't take the turn that you would expect.
Oh, wait. We can't just break in. We can't stay out here all night. On three, yeah? 1, 2, 3.
The story itself has so much substance that even without any of the paranormal or horror elements in it, you're still keen to stay entertained the whole time.
Phil, what are you doing? Phil, what are you doing? It's okay. It's okay.
We can't give you too many details, but in my personal opinion, it's one of the best creature or monster reveals of any film I've ever seen. The utter creativity that went into this creature design is also super scary and very, very interesting, and you will understand as soon as you see it. The first shot that you see it in is on a backdrop of fire, and it's absolutely mesmerizing. If you haven't seen it, you gotta check out The Ritual right now on Netflix. All right, the next movie we want to talk about is coming close to being a classic for its age. It's Jacob's Ladder. Now, Now, most people have not seen this movie either because they weren't old enough or they missed it when it came out in theaters. It was released 1 week before Child's Play Part 2, which heavily affected the amount of people that went to go see it, seeing as there was so much competition. Now, the movie itself is very, very interesting. It's got a lot of interesting visuals, and any trick or special effect that you saw happen in camera and not post-production. The movie is well known for being very confusing and hard to understand, but once you've watched it a second time, you're able to follow through and really understand what happens in the story. It actually follows a man who was previously a soldier in the Vietnam War, and it essentially shows the type of anguish, guilt, and trauma that he's still experiencing from that situation trying to live in the real world. He starts seeing things, he starts hearing things, and he obviously doesn't understand what's happening to him. And us as viewers, we feel for him, we try to understand what's going on with him, and he isn't a hard character to love because he's truly someone like the rest of us. Unfortunately, there was a terrible remake done of Jacob's Ladder that didn't even come close to harnessing the magic of the original film, so I would recommend watching the original. Tim Robbins does an exceptional job playing the main character, one of the first serious roles that he ever had in a film. Personally, I think that they knocked it out of the park. It's got amazing production, fantastic special effects, great practical effects, amazing acting, and a story that's very, very hard to understand. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing. You want people to think about a film after they've watched it, you want them to reflect, and you want them to come back and see it a second time. So if I could recommend any film very much so on this list, it would be Jacob's Ladder because it is one of the hardest to decipher, as well as being beautiful eye candy for all filmmakers to enjoy.
What happened? What happened that night? What was they telling us?
All right, guys, the next movie I want to talk about is the one and only Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell. Now, unfortunately, this was a movie that was not very popular. It's got fantastic camera work. Everything is so beautifully lit. It's crisp. It's got fantastic cinematography and very, very good special effects. So it essentially follows Alison Lohman playing the main character who works at a bank. And there's this older lady who comes in basically begging her for a loan so she can keep her home. Now, of course, Alison's character just works at the bank. She's not a manager. She doesn't have much say. And she genuinely does try to help this woman, but unfortunately cannot help her in any way possible. And when Alison's character finishes work and goes to her car, she ends up seeing this woman a second time. Things go very badly. They get into a fight. Now what happens is she gives her a malocchia, which is basically like the evil eye, and curses her. And we follow the story as this character is cursed and as things start to go terrible for her in her everyday life. It's got an incredible ending that I cannot unfortunately spoil, but when I first saw it, it stuck with me forever. The shot, the visuals, and the concept were just incredible beyond that. So I would highly recommend watching Drag Me to Hell right now. It's a fantastic paranormal film that keeps you on the edge of your seat, that has you twisting and turning, trying to understand what is actually real and what is actually going on. So please check it out today. Now guys, how could I not mention 1408? A movie that has appeared previously on our list. It's a fantastic film, a Stephen King adaptation starring John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson. Now, even if you haven't seen this film and you've only seen trailers, you know right away it is a great paranormal horror movie. It's got all of the usual elements that you'd want to find, a lot of unexplained phenomena happening, a good amount of fear, good amount of jump scares, a ton of suspense, and a very well-written story. The story follows a somewhat famous author who has become famous from visiting sites that are apparently haunted and writes about them in his books. You can tell that he's very depressed, he hates his career, he doesn't really believe in anything, obviously not the paranormal, but then goes on to find out about this room in a hotel that has been proven to be haunted. Now, of course, he doesn't believe it, but he decides he's going to visit, and that room is room 1408. And even though Samuel L. Jackson's character tries to tell John Cusack's character that it is definitely not a good idea to stay in the room, he definitely tries to persuade him into not not investigating the situation. And without spoiling too much, I think you should definitely watch the film. It's very serious, it's very intense, and the visuals are very, very cool. Now, they did a fantastic job with this film. It keeps you on your toes the whole time, and the ending is fantastic. So if you haven't had the chance, I definitely think you should check out 1408.
Maybe I'm not real. Maybe I'm just having a nightmare. An incredibly vivid, lucid nightmare.
Now, here's a movie that actually came out very recently and that I also watched very recently, and that is Late Night with the Devil. And I gotta say, I was so very impressed. Even with any possible situation where this movie fell short of something, I feel like it never overshadowed all of the great qualities about this movie. The story follows a somewhat famous person who has a late night talk show, and he decides that after his wife passes away from cancer, he wants to make a comeback at late night TV and try to get the best ratings that he's ever gotten, passing the likes of David Letterman. So he decides he's going to bring on some paranormal kind of specialist, do a Halloween type of episode, and talk about the occult. Now, during the show, one of his guests is a former musician and obviously someone who's very skeptical of the occult. You also have someone who is a renowned psychic who decides to try and find out some information from the crowd without them telling anything. And then he also has a doctor that comes in with one of her patients who is rumored to be possessed. Now, what I really love about this movie, besides the layout, the suspense, and the way that it's written, is just the format. We essentially get to watch the TV show as it would have been aired on TV in this universe, but we also get to see some behind the scenes commercial breaks, but we essentially see this show from start to finish with little bits and pieces of behind the scenes. The concept is fantastic, the quality was 10 on 10, and you really feel like you're watching a period piece. Everything is just so spot on. The acting is obviously amazing. No one in the star-studded cast, but everyone was really on top of their game. I feel like I was watching a passion project when I saw this film, and by some miracle, it made it to mainstream headline, got to theaters, and got quite a bit of attention, so I'm very happy to see that. As for the rest, all I can tell you is you should watch the film. It had a super, super awesome ending, and I would actually love to hear your thoughts in the comments about what you thought about Late Night with the Devil.
There's ostrich for that thing.
How the hell should I know?
Okay, guys, if you were to guess, would you guess VHS? This is a fantastic anthology series, and I'm going to be mainly focusing on the first installment in that franchise. I find that the first installment has the most elements of paranormal horror, but I really enjoyed all of the sequels in this franchise. I think that introducing us to all of these different filmmakers, different stories, different elements of horror is something that's always exciting for me because I feel like I'm watching a collection of amazing short films. VHS in particular, the first one, I feel had a lot of movie magic in it. It had a good underlying story that kind of helped tie all the stories together. It had a lot of gruesome violence. It had a lot of paranormal stuff. It had a lot of science fiction. And honestly, with the concept of the VHS tapes, as well as the found footage structure done for the most of these films, I think that it's fantastic and really draws in a lot of authenticity for these films. I feel like when you sit down and watch one of the installments of VHS, you can almost pretend that you're watching real footage of real things that have happened that you certainly can't understand and that you're absolutely terrified of. And I think that few movies, even found footage ones, really kind of pull you in like VHS does. I'm not sure if it's the short format or the content of the stories or just that the stories just really feel so authentic that they could be real. But man, the first VHS really took me by surprise, and I'm sure it took millions of people by surprise. It has spawned so many sequels because of its popularity, as well as giving other filmmakers a chance to make a film and put it in installments. I think it's really cool, it's really original, and I really support these kinds of films. So I really hope you check VHS out, and when you're done, watch the sequels. You will not regret it. They're super exciting, super original, and super cool.
What is that? What the fuck is this? Leave!
So this is an interesting film that I actually saw very recently that definitely needed to be included on this list. Unfortunately, it was hard to find because it did come in two titles, either The Borderlands or Final Prayer. Now, this is a really great found footage film based in the UK. It's one that I had never heard of until very recently, and it's one that kind of slipped through my fingers. There are a lot of great independent films, even some great found footage films around that time, but this one for some reason is one that I'd never heard of, I'd never seen. Now, the story follows this team of 3 investigators that are basically tasked to investigate anytime there is a claim of one of God's miracles. So they find themselves in a rural part of England, somewhere I think near Essex, where there's basically no one around, and there is a small church with one priest who has basically claimed there's been a miracle. Now, it just so happens when they arrive, he actually has video footage to show of what happened. Now, during the time that he's performing a baptism to a young child, things start to happen in the church, including loud noises, vibrations, and things flying off of the mantle behind him. Now, of course, these guys are known to be skeptical. They have to be skeptical. Their job is to investigate and see if this is actually a miracle, or if it was a setup, or if it was fake, or whatever the case may be. So we do follow the story in a very interesting manner. It's essentially done all in found footage because they stay at a cabin near the church where they do their work outside of the church. And also they set up cameras in that cabin and inside the church so that we can see both locations during the film, as well as headsets that also have a camera on the side of their head. Now, the cast is fantastic. They're basically nobodies that anyone has ever heard of. And it's essentially designed that way to give you the feeling that it actually really happened and these guys truly investigated this. Now, I can't tell you what happens, but what they're dealing with is no miracle. And if it is a miracle, it's a miracle from a fallen angel and not so much God himself. I highly recommend this film. It's got the right amount of wonder, of scary, of what the hell is happening, and a very good touch of claustrophobia near the end. So if you get the chance, check out this awesome paranormal horror found footage film under the name The Borderlands or Final Prayer. It will not disappoint.
Please, God, save them and forgive me. I have a new master net.
All right, guys, the next one I want to mention is actually a little bit unconventional when it comes to paranormal horror, Hellraiser 2022. Some of you might even ask, why the hell did he pick the remake version of this film? But personally, I love Hellraiser. I think that the redesign of Pinhead was fantastic. The film has an amazing amount of gore. It's got a super cool story. And obviously, coming back to the origin and roots of the series itself. Now, it's really hard to put into words exactly why the Hellraiser series is considered paranormal. If you have seen any of the movies, then you've seen the Lament configuration, you've seen Leviathan, and you understand that all of this is kind of in the realm of the hellscape. Now, if you assume that hell is real and hell is part of the idea of heaven and hell, then this would definitely classify itself as somewhat paranormal. Of course, it doesn't have ghosts and it doesn't really have religious themes, except for that Pinhead would be the priest or priestess of hell. Now, of course, this was originally written by Clive Barker, and he did some amazing work when coming up with the story for the original series. All in all, the series has had a lot of ups and downs. It's had many, many films, but I was never expecting to see a remake, reboot, requel type of film like this that had such a high quality. Now, unfortunately, there were so many people who complained about bullshit like, oh, the main actress is trans. Oh, you know, they took out Doug and like he's not playing Pinhead anymore. I'm sorry, but the guy is like 75 years old. He can't reprise his role anymore. He hasn't for the last 3 films. You gotta give them some credit. They went ahead and made this dreamy hellscape movie with elements of like paranormal and science fiction. You could almost call it like mathematical horror. It's so fantastic. I mean, anyone who's watched any of the early Hellraiser movies has loved it for the gore, the costumes, the designs of the Cenobites, and this one does not fail in any which way. Now, to some people, it might seem like maybe a more forgettable film because they're so loyal to the originals. But honestly, if you haven't seen it, it is not a shit remake. It's not a cheap requel. It's the real deal. I watched it. I was thoroughly impressed as a horror fan, as a Hellraiser fan, and I definitely think you should check out Hellraiser 2022. All right, guys, the very next film and the last film on this list is The Witch. I know that it's got a little bit of an ambiguous title because they use two V's to create the W. So some people are like, it's called The Vitch. Some people are like, it's called The Witch. Essentially, according to the internet, it's called The Witch from 2015. It's a very interesting story. It takes place in the 1600s in New England. So it follows a small family that basically live on their own little farm. The crops are shit. The weather is shit. The mood itself of the film is basically one of desperation and poverty. Now, what happens is one of their children goes missing, their youngest son. And after that happens, they accuse one of their daughters of practicing witchcraft. Of course, there's like a ton of paranoia. Things start to go south. But eventually, towards the end of the film, things start to get very, very interesting. Now, obviously, it's in the paranormal category because of the elements of witchcraft or anything of the occult of that sort. But I'll be honest with you, I was not expecting this at all when I saw this movie. I thought it was going to be totally boring. I thought it was going to be like a weird artsy period piece. But instead, it's a fantastic movie where the writer used this place and time as a backdrop for the story, which ended up being fantastic. Now, we don't get a lot of good witch stories and we don't get a lot of good witchcraft stories, especially in the sense that are serious or well done or have a high budget. This film was great. The acting was great. Anya Taylor-Joy does a fantastic job as the main actress here. I think it was one of her first major roles. And I think because of this alone, she's been cast in a ton of movies. So I'm super stoked about her performance here. I definitely recommend watching it, even if you don't like these period piece type horror movies or these period type fiction movies. It's seriously awesomely haunting. It's interesting. It's eerie. It's weird. It's mysterious. So it's got a lot of great elements. And with the color grading and the cinematography, it does feel like a sense of desperation constantly. You can feel the paranoia. You can almost feel the temperature that they're enduring when you watch the movie. So for that and many other reasons, I would recommend giving The Witch a try. It's a fantastic piece of cinematic art.
What will you from me?
Dost thou see a book before thee? Remove thy shift.
Well, thank you all for joining us. We hope that you'll watch some of these films and be as creeped out as we were. Until next time, everybody.